it is a policy that may not be this very rousing and emotive kind of an issue. But I can tell you that our education policy is the very cornerstone, is the very basis of our entire society as it exists today. And why have we titled the policy Educating for Creativity and Equality? That is because these are the two qualities that will ensure the survival and prosperity of any society. If you look at what's happening in Singapore today, the one very important ingredient that's missing from our society is the lack of creativity in our own population. Now, this has been admitted by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew himself in a report in 2008. He said that without foreign workers, how are we going to generate jobs for Singapore? 2011, the Prime Minister, Lee Hsien Loong, echoed that sentiment. He said that without foreigners, how are we going to attract investments? This is a very serious indictment, even if it's done unwittingly, of our education policy. After 50 years, more than 50 years of PAP rule, and it's been uninterrupted, there was never been any change in government. So the PAP cannot claim that in between it could not implement its policies. Now I want you to think about it. More than half a century, we would have educated at least a couple, if not more, generations of Singaporeans. And yet today, the government tells us that we cannot generate enough creative talent, knowledge, and our populace to be able to generate jobs for Singaporeans without our dependence on foreigners. So what does the government do? Instead of taking a good hard look at its own policies, education policies, it then decides to embark on this foreign talent policy to replace Singaporeans with foreigners. That has created every other problem that you see, whether it's your cost of living, correct? SDP prices, your COE, and that's brought down our quality of life. And then also, with the number enormous number of foreigners here, you inevitably will get social tension. And it's already beginning to build up. You've seen it, for example, right? The riot in Little India, the recent kerfuffle over whether the Filipinos should be able to hold the event, the National Day celebrations at Orchard Road, and so on and so forth. These are very serious problems, and they all emanate from a very ill-considered education policy. It may have worked for us. Arguably, it may have worked in the early years of formation. But when you don't constantly review, when you don't have an opposition in Parliament to question, to hold this government accountable to its own actions, you get a policy that has become anachronistic. And right on down the road, no one picks up the problem until you see the results today. Sure, you may get the government continuing to say, oh, look, we score very well in PISA, you know, that international assessment conducted by the OECD. Singaporeans students top rank. But that covers covers up that bigger problem, right? Are we able to produce enough talent to bring our society forward? There is an index. It's called the Knowledge Economy Index, compiled by the World Bank, where it assesses economies, countries, on its ability to adapt to the knowledge-based economy, prepare its people for the knowledge-based economy. Out of about 45 countries, Singapore ranked 29. Countries like, for example, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, ranked 1, 2, 3. And if you look at their systems, their students don't perform much worse. In fact, Finland has been scoring top position or thereabouts in the PISA assessment. What is it that they're doing that have given their students, right, this ability to compete internationally and at the same time to produce a knowledge-based economy effectively? These are things that we've got to look at. So we're taking the trouble to draw up this our alternative policy. Because if we continue to ignore some of these problems, we are going to continue to languish, and the results are beginning to show that we'll become less and less competitive in the world. There's one other issue that I want to raise before I call on our speakers to give you the proposal. And it is this question of equality. Apart from this very sad situation where we subject our children to this horrendous, horrific kind of very high-pressured system, you have children, 22%, correct me if I'm wrong, but almost a quarter of our children have reported, gone to see psychiatrists, psychologists, because of behavioral problems, hallucinations, depression, behavioral inappropriatenesses. It's a sad situation, what we're putting our children through. Many of them acted out, had delusional suicidal thoughts. And they acted out. They actually take their own lives. The report post that we put up on our website, I'm sure some of you would have seen it. Children actually commit suicide because of this pressure of their exams. We must do something about it. We also have this problem whereby, because of the intense pressure, parents want to engage private tuition for their children. Private tuition, as you all know, is not cheap. What about families? What about families who cannot afford private tuition? All it means is that we've taken education out from our schools and placed it on family. How right is this? We've got to do something about it, and this is what we're going to do today. And because of that, the SDP feels very strongly that we must give those from the poor families a leg up. Let them compete, starting from the same starting line. We understand that in a world where you value enterprise, individual reward, you must acknowledge that not every one of us is the same. But the difference is that what we believe in is that everybody must start at the same starting line. If they finish at the end differently, that's because of talent, ability. We accept that. We reward them differently. But they must start at the same starting line. And that is why, following the presentation, we will present bursaries to students who from the lower income families, and that's our little, very modest way of seeing how we can begin to help some of these students from poorer backgrounds. Okay. With that in mind, let me very quickly then turn now to our first speaker, which is Ms. Chong Wai Fung, and she will take us through some of the proposals in early education as well as special needs education.